I start writing, I make sure that I have my poetry book. Anyways, I'm gonna start from literal scratch and write a poem with you guys and see how that goes. I think I do have the actual poem here. Hey Raleigh besties, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're well. Today I'm going to be talking about my poetry writing process. I write poetry, which is really cool. You should too. Poetry has become such a staple in my life. I recently went to the Netherlands. I kept all my poetry in this cute Miffy book and the memories, crazy. But I'm going to be getting into the 5 sort of process things that I get through when I'm writing my poetry and just chatting about the in-depth process of how I write intuitively, especially if you're a beginner or just curious about my process. But yes, let's go ahead and get on it to the video. Let's go. First step is intuitive writing. So I approach my poetry extremely intuitively. And if you guys don't know what intuition is just like a sort of feeling, freeing thing. It's basically writing by the seat of your pants. When I start writing, I make sure that I have my poetry book. This is one little quick tip that I have, is to write poetry on a physical book. It's just so much better, trust me. You won't get distracted. I feel like it's so much more of a nicer experience. There is something about writing slowly that allows you to actually understand what you're writing and feel more in tune with what you're writing. I do sound like a hippie poet. But it's also really nice because it gives you time to think as you're working through your intuition. So what I firstly do is I grab out my notebook and I simply think about a feeling, a word, a phrase that I've been thinking about. Usually this is instigated by an experience I'm having. Maybe I'm falling in love, maybe I'm really stressed. Usually I don't actually know what I'm writing about until the poem is finished anyways. But this sort of feeling, word, etc. usually just initiates me into the writing process and gets me into the momentum of writing the poem. This is another tip, that when you have just random lines, little meditations, write them in your notes app. And these are like just filled with things that I think about, what like people say, just things that I remember and things that I just imagine. For example, there's just a line that says, "There are angels in my kitchen." That's really pretty, and I haven't used that in a poem yet, but that can help instigate, you know, the sort of writing of my poetry, if that makes sense. Anyways, as soon as you have your idea, your saying, your feeling, we can move on to the next step. This step is called creative momentum, and I'm going to show you a clip right now of my favorite movie. If you're a poet or a writer and haven't watched this movie before, please do. It's The Dead Poets Society. Anyways, I'm gonna let you watch it before I actually explain, so here you go.
Now, you don't get away that easy. Picture of Uncle Walt up there. What does he remind you of? Don't think. Answer. Go on.
A madman.
What kind of madman? Well, think about it. Just answer again.
A crazy madman.
Oh, you can do better than that. Free up your mind. Use your imagination. Say the first thing that pops into your head, even if it's total gibberish. Go on.
A sweaty-toothed madman.
Good God, boy. There's a poet in you after all. There. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close them. Now, describe what you see.
I close my eyes.
Yes?
And this image floats beside me.
Sweaty-toothed madman.
A sweaty-toothed madman with a stare that pounds my brain.
Oh, that's excellent. Now, give him action. Make him do something.
His hands reach out and choke me.
That's wonderful.
And all the time he's mumbling.
What's he mumbling?
Mumbling truth.
Yeah.
Truth like a blanket that always leaves your feet cold.
Forget them. Stay with the blanket. Tell me about that blanket.
You push it, stretch it, it'll never be enough. You kick at it, beat it, it'll never cover any of us. From the moment we enter crying to the moment we leave dying, it'll just cover your face as you wail and cry and scream.
I always truly get chills when I watch that scene. I love it so much. I think it just speaks so much about the creative fluidity that we have as writers and how creative momentum is truly a thing. But as you saw, Mr. Keating, who was the teacher, really helped Todd just kind of grab these ideas and let it flow into something that gives you shivers, into something that really truly surprises yourself and hopefully the audience eventually. But truly, I adore this sort of very weird feeling of being a creative person and letting creative momentum take its course. This sort of intuition I find is very magical and something you should lean into instead of stray from through practice, and that's what I usually do in a lot of my poetry. I do want to say that creative fluidity does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. But I truly believe that still all of my best ideas, all my best lines, all my favorite poems come to me on a whim, come to me randomly as I'm just writing something, and you just gotta practice that muscle. So by getting an idea, a feeling, a saying, and simply just telling yourself, okay, write about this. That's exactly what happened in that scene before. And Mr. Keating tells him, don't think, just answer. Okay, so the third thing that I do while I'm writing, and again, it's kind of like difficult to separate this into 5 parts, but this is what I think about as I'm writing. So the third sort of step is I think about common words or phrases that I use in a lot of my poetry. This can have to do with the sort of theme you're writing, the sort of poem you're writing specifically, but I find that a lot of my poems actually really link together in a sense. And I think this is actually a really cool thing that you should do and practice, to realize what words you use, what ideas you use quite commonly. These are kind of reoccurring words that turn up in my poetry, the kind of pretty words, ideas, and things I feel most drawn to, if that makes sense. And I kind of inbuilt this into my subconscious that allows me to kind of draw them up as I'm writing intuitively, so I can help fill in the gaps of what I'm writing. For example, I have a list here that I'm just going to read out. I have lots of poems talking about angels falling or sort of flight imagery, things representing dust. I use dust so much in a lot of my poems. Teeth descriptions like gnashing, bed sheets, pillows, dreams, rain, sea metaphors, mothers, corpse, veins, hands, mirrors, stuff like that. I know, yeah, and I've like just made a list and I have that in my subconscious. I have that sort of in my mind that this is the sort of style, this is the sort of like imagery I want to write. And of course it doesn't always have to be like this. I can stray, I can write new things, but it's just like helps me. And I also read a lot of like angelic things. I'm a Christian myself, so I find lots of things related to things, and I think that's kind of poetry in my opinion. Just finding different things to represent feelings. And I think reading a lot of poetry, another little tip, not reading poetry specifically, but just reading in general helps so much with developing new ideas and new ways of thinking about things. And simply just like walking around and thinking about how you would describe this to someone who's blind or who's deaf. Like really challenge yourself as you're just going out on your day and pay attention to things. For example, I was on the bus one day and I was just driving home and I was looking out the window and I just saw this red balloon stuck in a tree, and I wrote this whole poem about it like in barely 2 minutes while I was driving home. And that's also another tip, is to make sure that you strike where it's hard, where it's hot. Strike when you first have the idea if you can. If not, write it down. But usually, again, as I'm writing like about the balloon, I just simply write the poem because of this intuitive, I just keep falling and falling and falling. It's kind of like you trip. You need to find that trip so then you can fall into the poem. I think I do have the actual poem here, if you guys want to hear it. Okay, so here it is. And literally the first sentence is basically what I see. It goes like this. On the bus, I saw a red heart balloon, deflated and caught in a tree. It reminded me of myself, taunted by the wind, unfree. Let me go, I say, but I'm caught in your leaves. I will die here, I say, but the wind blows away from me. I'm stuck here, dying, the sky watching me. She'll die there, it says, and does nothing. So, of course, it was not just about the balloon I saw in the tree, but it was the feelings I was having as I saw that, if that makes sense. And your subconscious will fill that up, hopefully. If not, you'll get really used to just seeing this intuitive feeling nature, kind of similar to the common words and ideas. That will also translate to your feelings, and you'll kind of see a pattern of like the sort of poems you're writing about if you write poems very frequently. So write a little list down, think about things maybe you want to write about, sort of metaphors, motifs, symbols that you find very interesting, or just go onto Pinterest and kind of get a vibe of what your poetry like should be about. It could be very like grungy, it can be very flowery, it can be very pretty, it can be very royalistic. What is the vibe you're going for? I think that's fun as well. The fourth tip, okay, so as we're going through the line of process, another thing that I think really helps with guiding you through the poem is rhyme Rhyme will be your savior. I adore rhyme, and I think it's truly something that makes or breaks a poem and allows you to actually guide yourself throughout the poetry process. And there's only so many words that rhyme with whatever you say at the second line, and that will just guide. So you think of words that rhyme with that word and then go from there to actually guide what your poem is trying to say. So that's why I think, like, even words and language and how that works, I think that's very interesting how that works with the creative process. So I definitely think rhyme is probably the best tool in poetry. I mean, it just gives the punch. It is such an amazing thing to use to your advantage. It helps with the flow, and it also helps actually emphasize really important lines within your poem. In particular though, I really encourage you guys to think about near rhymes, not full-on rhymes, you know what I mean? So I kind of separate this into hard rhymes and near rhymes. For example, if there's a word bed, a hard rhyme would be thread, but a near rhyme would be pretend. Do you see how that, it's kind of, do you see what I mean? I think it's very, very cool. I think they're a lot more powerful and a lot more unexpected to yourself and also the reader. I think they're just so much more pretty and realistic somehow, and also natural, if that makes sense. I kind of call them natural rhymes as well. I love them. They're like little sneaky things that I think really, really help. So anyways, that's what I use usually to guide my poems. The last thing I do as soon as I write the poem and finish it, I think it's really important for me to preface that you don't need to edit as you go. Simply just write. If you miss out of words, if you don't know how to represent something, just kind of let it be. Just relax and go on to the next line. Like, a lot of these poems are just me figuring out what I'm trying to say. And you can see, like, there's just so many crossing out, so many gaps, but I fill it in through the last step, which is the editing step. And basically this is what I use, and I kind of call this step making my poetry make sense, which is interesting because intuitive writing, you're just writing things that come to you, but that does not mean your poem makes sense, and it never means my poetry makes sense, because I truly, like, as I'm editing, that's when I actually understand the meaning of my poem. Here I try to read over my poem, understand what I'm trying to say, what sort of theme is running, and I'm just trying to make the main idea more clear, or maybe like I write like a very confusing line that I understand that maybe someone else won't, and just kind of make it more believable, more clear, and just better, to be honest. So I firstly, of course, try to make it make sense, and then secondly, I try to make it read well. I think you guys know my views on over editing. I don't like to edit too much. I really do love the way that I write a poem and how I think that's like canon. I think that's what I meant to say, and I shouldn't change it too much. But I think there's lots of good things about editing your work, but just not too much, if that makes sense. Don't make it perfect. I think there's always a degree of self-assertion and also sort of like subjectivity to poetry that you're not always gonna land, because different people are gonna read your poems. So this way I try to keep my poem as much as I can to its original form. I hope the light has not been too annoying for you. It's a little bit blinding for me, so I'm gonna hop over to the shade and I'm gonna actually write a poem with you guys to show you my process. So excited. I literally love this, but let's go ahead and actually write a poem with each other. Let's go. Okay, so I have my notebook and my pen. I want to show you guys this pen real quick. It literally has Ghost Side on it. I got it from one of my best friends in the Netherlands. It's literally my favorite pen and it's so beautiful. Anyways, I just wanted to show you. This is my book, A Ghost Side. If you guys don't know, I'm writing a book about ghosts. Pretty cool. Anyways, I'm gonna start from literal scratch and write a poem with you guys and see how that goes. I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest, but I'm gonna literally start from scratch. So, time begins now. Let's write a poem. Okay, I'm gonna think about an idea. A theme, a motif, a symbol. I mean, here in my table, I don't know if you guys know, there's a cute little Holland. It's like the symbol of Holland, and they're both kissing. I think it's quite innocent. So maybe I want to write about that vibe. Yeah. And I just get like a random string in my mind. I don't know if this is helpful, but I just got the idea, like the idea of kissing, the idea of innocence. I want to write down now the first line as the prompt, which is, there is no There's no kissing in innocence. There's no innocence in kissing. Ooh, okay, I'm gonna write a romance, obviously. Okay, let's see. Let's see, I might speed it up so you're not just hearing me mumble, because I mumble a lot when I write poetry, which is something I do and I think it helps. But I'm gonna write the first prompt, which is this is quite interesting. As soon as I finish writing, this is what it looks like. You can see there's scribbles everywhere. Usually there's a lot more arrows and stuff, but that will eventually come. What I do next after I've written this monstrosity, I will read over it. I'm gonna read it out aloud to see how terrible it turns. It says, "There's no innocence in kissing, not when I'm kissing you." Okay, I didn't mean this to be spicy. "The skin brushing mine is corruptible, and I'm betting on love all the time. I see how the light loves you, like an angel, a curse below me. I trace your shoulder blades, and I can't imagine. No. Okay, so this is my brain. I trace your shoulder blades, and I can't help but imagine your wings." Yeah. I crossed that out because I thought it would work better, but the pacing I think is important. So this is me filling in words. And I can't help but imagine your wings. I never thought I'd want to be restrained to this. I don't like the word restrained. I was struggling to find another word for that. It's kind of like, like you didn't see, but I was making like this motion with my hand. Because I want to think about, this is the idea about me shrinking myself to become a bone, a rib, which is kind of the imagery tied to like the Bible. But I didn't know how to describe that, so. Because belittled isn't the word. It's not like it's against my will, because I want to be belittled, but it's not belittled. Transformed? I don't know, if I'm having a lot of trouble, I do go to thesaurus. Restrained. I guess that's kind of like a negative. I want it to be positive. Controlled. Confined? Maybe confined, but I want a positive version of confined. Contained. I think it's quite similar. I never thought I'd want to be contained to this, to shrink like chalk, to become a bone, a rib. Trish already said that. I'm talking about the Adam's apple here. I think the Adam's apple is such a beautiful imagery. I also am obsessed with shoulder blades. This is, you will know that poets get weirdly obsessed with different things. What's another word for trace? Caress. That's a bit sensual. I outline your Adam's apple. It's mine. If I'm Adam's rib, let me breathe you in, my pretty angel of death. I don't like that. My pretty angel of, okay, what rhymes with rib? Maybe forbid. It's kind of, I like it. Okay, I think I've chosen it. As you saw, I kind of have fixed it up. Now what I do is I reread over it and I actually title the poem, which is important. I think I want to title it Ribs and Angels. Again, I'm obsessed with angels, obviously. And yeah, I think it's pretty basically that's it. I'm gonna reread it for you guys so you can see how it turned out. I wrote this in like, 5 minutes, I think. Okay, this is called Ribs and Angels. Don't get a poet in love. They write stupid stuff like this. Okay, Ribs and Angels. There's no innocence in kissing, not when I'm kissing you. The skin brushing mine is corruptible, and I'm betting on love all the time. I see how the light loves you, Like an angel, a curse below me. I trace your shoulder blades and can't help but imagine your wings. I never thought I'd want to be contained to this, to shrink like chalk, to become bone, to become rib. I outline your Adam's apple. It's mine if I'm Adam's rib. Let me breathe you in, my pretty angel of love. My pretty angel, the heavens will surely forbid. Bop, bop, bop. Tick, done, finished. Of course it's not perfect, but that's just like how I roll. It's not the best poem I've written because I was really scared. You can tell the pressure was real. But I hope you enjoyed me sharing that part of my process. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching it till the end of this video. I'm sorry if it was a bit of a longer sort of tip video, but I really enjoyed it. This has been recommended, which makes me so happy. I'm so happy that you're actually interested in how I write poetry. But of course, if you want to check out my own poetry, check out the link below to see my poem, A Big Word for a Woman, and also my poetry on my Instagram. Anyways, yes, I love you, and I hope to see you in my next writing video. Bye everyone!